Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be discussing the new Aeldari Combat Patrol. Guys, it has officially been announced by GW, probably because the contents were already basically leaked, but they had made an announcement on Twitter that essentially this is what it's going to be. And we kind of knew this for a while. I know Valrak had made some, predictions about what this was going to be and so forth, and those ended up being true. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. And the biggest question on our minds is this set worth purchasing? And we are going to discuss that right now. So, what we're going to be talking about in this video is what's in the new Combat Patrol. We're going to be looking at the monetary value of the units inside, how effective the units are in the new Combat Patrol, the pros and cons of the new Combat Patrol, and lastly, what to buy after this, and the journey to 1,000 points. Now, we're also going to discuss, of course, the actual savings of the models if you buy them in the Combat Patrol and what value you're getting from it. Okay, so first of all, what's in the new Combat Patrol? We're going to be getting 2 units of Dire Avengers, that's 2 units of 5. We're going to be getting 5 Warp Spiders, the new sculpts. We are also going to be getting 5 Wraith Guard or Wraith Blades. You can build them however you want to. And 1 Spirit Seer to lead your Wraith Boys. So that's a pretty good offering, to be honest with you. A lot of the Combat Patrols in 10th edition got a lot worse, and I would say that this Combat Patrol is more of a side grade than a complete downgrade. I actually think it's probably going to be more popular among Aeldari players in general, especially with the new codex. So, what is the monetary value of the units inside? So we are getting 10 Dire Avengers. They normally cost $90 on the GW website. Of course, this is going to be a little less in, euros or British pounds, but, you guys probably know those prices better than I do. $45 per 5 is what GW currently sells them at. Warp Spiders, of course, are $62.50, which is that's a pretty big price tag. So they're pretty expensive. We got 5 Wraith Guard or Wraith Blades. They're also $62.50 for that box set. And the Spirit Seer is $35. Now, the total cost of this is going to be $250 US. And the cost of the Combat Patrol is going to be $168. It's going to be the same cost as every single other Combat Patrol out there. So what this means is that you're saving about 32.8% or around 33% of your money. So that is a very good value. Now, of course, we need to, kind of talk about what the actual, units are in the Combat Patrol, right? That is a conversation we need to have. But here's the other thing, and a lot of you guys will already know this, but you can often get the Combat Patrol cheaper from third-party retailers for an additional 15 to 20% off. So you should be able to get this new Combat Patrol for about $135 from third-party retailers. That is an absolute steal considering the models cost $250 from GW. You're basically just getting free units at that point. So its value is very good. I would say its value is very comparable to the old Combat Patrol where you had the Wraith Lord and the Wind Riders and so forth. A lot of people were, a little bit miffed that the old Combat Patrol didn't come with Aspect Warriors, and I totally understand that. This one comes with, I think, a better offering of Aspect Warriors with the Warp Spiders and Dire Avengers, so you're covered there, but it also does still come with some rates. Okay, but how effective are the units in the new Combat Patrol? Are you going to buy this Combat Patrol and instantly get into a game of 40k and just get wiped? Well, as of now, on Codex release, these units are incredibly strong. They're some of the strongest units in the Codex. You get a good primary scoring and damage dealing unit in the Wraith Guard and Wraith Blades with the Spirit Seer. they can really pop off. The Spirit Seer can give them sustained hits 1 against a target, gives them +1 to hit as well, and of course gives them better leadership value, which doesn't really matter too much, but it's kind of important for Battle Shock and things like that because they are going to be scoring primary for you most of the time in smaller point games. You have Dire Avengers, which are exceptional at destroying infantry targets, especially in certain detachments. And I will talk about what detachments I think this combat patrol is going to be best in upon release. And of course, you have Warp Spiders, which are a great secondary objective unit with high movement, and of course, Torrent weapons that can overwatch pretty effectively as well. Now, the other thing is this combat patrol is going to also pair great if you did any of the pre-orders. Like if you pre-ordered Lycus and a Zerman, this combat patrol is going to be for you because essentially you're saving a lot of money on the units that you're going to need to put your Phoenix Lords into. Okay, let's talk about the pros and cons of the new combat patrol. So the pros are it has great value with a good amount of savings. 33% savings just on GW prices alone is good, but when you compare that and combine that with third-party retailers, you're looking at a significant amount of savings, almost 50%. It also contains the new Warp Spider sculpts, which are awesome. They're absolutely magnificent sculpts. They're really going to be very popular, I think, and currently I think they might even be out of stock on the GW store. I haven't checked in a couple days, but the last time I checked, they were out of stock. They might have more though now. Also, the units have strong datasheets and rule support in the codex, which is really important, right? A big problem with the old Combat Patrol in 9th edition when it came out was that the rule support for the units that were in the Combat Patrol were awful. And, on release, the Eldar Combat Patrol actually wasn't that good. It was middling at best. A lot of the units in the Combat Patrol sucked, and people just really got it because there was, good savings to be had. But the units were actually not good in 9th edition. All right, when you talk about the Wraith Lord in 9th edition or the Guardians, God, the Guardian Defenders in 9th edition, I mean, I had videos on how to use them, but they were not that great, and the jet bikes were probably the best thing out of that set in 9th edition. When 10th edition rolled around, that set all of a sudden became really good. And this one on release is just really good. You don't have to worry about waiting on it or getting it at an even steeper discount. This thing is going to be really awesome. Now, here are the cons, because it does have some. Now, the Dire Avengers are a sculpt from 2006, and I know they don't look like it on the box art, but it really does show because they have awful 2006 mold lines. And if you guys don't know this, the plastic models back then had very bad mold lines, but once you clean them up a bit, they do look very good, but they are older models. The other thing is, of course, the Spirit Seer really only synergizes with the Wraith Blades or the Wraith Guard, however you built them. And, this, of course, is going to incentivize more purchases. So, GW's clever. This Combat Patrol is going to incentivize you to buy the supporting cast for these units. So for Dire Avengers, it's going to be a Zerman and a Wave Serpent. For Warp Spiders, it's going to be Lycus. For the Wraith Guard or Wraith Blades, it's probably going to be a Wraith Lord, right? So there are going to be units that you're going to want to pick up after getting this because you're going to be playing with them. And if you just play with this set alone, you're going to notice that it is lacking in some departments, right? Like the one thing about the old Combat Patrol is that it was kind of a good self-contained box. You had everything you needed without too much support outside of it. Like Wind Riders were a very, in that Combat Patrol, were pretty self-sufficient. The Guardians could attach to the Farseer. They were pretty self-sufficient. And the Wraith Lord was pretty self-sufficient for the most part. And, this is not the same thing in this Combat Patrol. It is a good buy, don't get me wrong. But if you're only playing 500-point games, you're going to notice that your units aren't going to have as much support as maybe you would like them to be. Okay, so here's the question. What do you buy after this? Because you're going to need, again, you're going to need things to bring yourself up to 1,000 points. Now, the cheapest way, if you haven't already pre-ordered some, Phoenix Lords, the cheapest and best way to do this, I think, is to get the old Combat Patrol while you can. It has a great value and it won't be around long, and it really does synergize well with the new Combat Patrol. It can be found on Amazon currently or eBay for around $140. This price recently got increased because, of course, the Combat Patrol is now out of production. So get it while you can, guys. It's not going to be there long, and once it's gone and the, supply is low, the price of this thing is going to skyrocket, just like the Start Collecting set. By the way, I've looked at the Start Collecting set from way back, and the one with the Wraith Lord, Warwalker, and Wraithguard and Farseer. The value of that thing no longer holds. It's extremely expensive for what it is. You're usually paying like $170 for it, and in my opinion, it's just not really worth it anymore. Now, in addition to grabbing the older Combat Patrol, which is still a great value at $140, grabbing the Blades of Cain Kill Team on discount, you can get it on eBay for around $50 to $60, or grab the Eldritch Omens Aeldari half. Again, you can probably get that for around $85, $90 if you're really looking, or you could just buy the whole set and then, for about $200 and then sell half of it. Those are also great choices if you want to swap out some units and try some different detachments. So, these are kind of units that if you notice a weakness in your list, your 1,000-point list, you can be like, okay, well, I'll swap out a squad of Wind Riders for a squad of Striking Scorpions, or I'll swap out, the Spirits here. Maybe you don't need the Spirits here. I'll swap out the Spirits here for some Rangers or something like that, right? I think that's the best way to go about it. Kind of try different things, try different synergies, and so forth. And again, those things can be found relatively cheap, at least the models, on eBay or Amazon. I think Amazon is actually also selling the old Blades of Cain Kill Team for about $70. Yeah, you don't get the tokens, but you don't get the updated tokens, but you do get the models, and you are saving a little bit on what JW is charging. And the Striking Scorpions are new models. They look good for the most part. I think their stances are a little boring, to be honest with you, but that's fine. They have good sculpts, right? So that's what I would recommend buying after you buy this Combat Patrol. And for those of you wondering, the Combat Patrol is going to probably become available within a couple of weeks. I would say when the pre-orders come out, GW will announce their, date for the Combat Patrol being available to buy. Okay, so here's an example 1,000-point list using the updated Codex point values. So these are the updated values that are going to be on release. And honestly, it's looking pretty good for an 1,000-point list. It's a very good starter list, I think, for a lot of players. I'm actually going to use something similar myself when I go into the local game store to play some, kind of just fun, casual games with my buddies. So we have one Spirit Seer, 65 points. We have one Farseer at 70. We have 10 Guardian Defenders with a Bright Lance. That's going to cost us 100 points. We have 2 units of 3 Wind Riders with the Shuriken Cannons at 160. Of course, you can magnetize those to be scatter lasers if you want as well. We have 1 Wraith Lord with 2 Bright Lances, 2 Flamers, and the Ghost Glaive at 140 points. We have 2 units of 5 Dire Avengers. Of course, you could just make it a single unit of 10. If you wanted the extra synergies from stratagems and things like that, that's totally fine as well. But you're going to arm the Dire Avenger Exarch with the dual Avenger Shuriken Catapult. You're going to have 5 Wraith Blades with Ghost Axes and Force Shields at 170. Now, personally, I think at 1,000 points, you should probably give them the Ghost Axes and the Force Shields so that they can hold objectives for you. Especially if you're a newer player, you kind of want a unit that's a little bit tough that can hold an objective. You have a Wraith Lord as well. You have your Wraith Blades. They can definitely score your primary points at 1,000 points. But if you want to go more of a, kind of crush your enemy route, you can go with the Wraith Guard with the Wraith Cannons or the D-Sights. It's definitely up to you. The Wraith Cannons are very good against tanks, and the D-Sights are going to be great Overwatch into Marines. We also have 5 Warp Spiders. The Exarch is going to have the Spinneret Rifle and the Death Weavers. I've decided that this is the best way to run this unit as a unit of 5 if you're not running Lilith. If you are running Lilith, you want to give them the Power Blade Array With the 4 power blades, you want to go Count Grievous because Lycus is going to want to charge into combat. So you're going to want something better in combat. But if you're just running 5 of them, I think the Spinneret Rifle and Death Weavers are the way to go. And that's it. The total cost comes to 950 points. Now, you will have to add some enhancements to get yourself up to 1,000. I personally suggest, with this loadout, with this list, going with the Warhost attachment and putting Psychic Destroyer on the Farseer to give him +1 damage on his Eldritch Storm, and Timeless Strategist on the Spiritseer to give you +1 Battle Focus tokens per turn. So remember, the Warhost gives you an extra Battle Focus token, and then of course that enhancement gives you an extra one on top of that. So you're sitting on, instead of 4, you're sitting on 6 Battle Focus tokens for the army, which is pretty cool. Just being able to basically target everything in the army with a Battle Focus token, right? You might not even, honestly, you might not even need that many tokens, but you're just kind of filling in points. You need to put something on it. You could also put a Phoenix Gem on the Spiritseer, or the, yeah, this is, a Phoenix Gem is probably the better one to go on the Spiritseer, but it's not ideal, right? It's something that you're just throwing in for extra points. But it's still cool. I think this list overall is very good. You have units that can score on secondary objectives very well. You have units that can take primary objectives and hold them. You have units that can deal with infantry, and you have a good amount of damage in the army as well. And a lot of tricks and a lot of synergies, right? The Farseer can cast Guide on something. The Wraith Lord can shoot 2 Bright Lances at it, and if the Wraith Lord is obviously within range of the Spiritseer, he's getting +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill, and with Guide, he's getting +1 to hit. Those stack, right? +1 ballistic skill, +1 weapon skill, and +1 to hit, they stack with each other. So the Wraith Lord, who normally hits on 4s, will be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s to hit and to wound because of the Wraith Lord's ability. So the Wraith Lord becomes an absolute beast at actually destroying vehicles with those Bright Lances. It's kind of like old Battle Host rerolls in a lot of ways, and we know how good those were, right, guys? Those Battle Host rerolls that you miss, the Wraith Lord can basically still do it. 2 Flamers and a Ghost Glaive as well for combat is very strong. And, of course, the Farseer can hang out with the Guardians and change their Bright Lance damage to a 6, or, you know, you can make sure that you hit with an Overwatch shot once per turn. So you can use his ability once per turn, and that's great for Overwatch as well. So there's a lot of cool synergies in this list, and I'm excited to try it just casually myself. Now, I would say the only weakness of this list is possibly against, you know, really sweaty tryhards who want to just run, you know, a bunch of vehicles at you. There's good anti-tank in this list, but I'm not sure it's enough. If your opponent takes out the Wraith Lord and is able to maybe even take out the, you know, Wraith Blades or the Wraith Guard, if you have them, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to take out their tanks. But even so, you should be able to outscore them on secondary objectives and just deny their primaries pretty well. And this is a good list for it. Has a lot of tools, and I think it's also a lot of fun. And it's also a good introduction to Eldar. Has a lot of units that are, you know, pretty good and will teach you the ropes of the faction. So in conclusion, the new Combat Patrol is a great box set that will complement an existing Eldar army very nicely, or be an excellent starting point for a new player. It also blends very well with the old Combat Patrol, and together they can make a really effective starting list. It also has very good value, and even though it did decrease slightly in monetary value, it didn't decrease by a massive amount, and not nearly as much as the other 10th edition Combat Patrols, and has very strong data sheets in it. So overall, really good option for, you know, people who are starting Aeldari out. I know we didn't get a Battle Force, which sucks, you know, but this Combat Patrol is honestly really good. And for those of you out there who are thinking about buying multiple of these things to get multiple spiders and multiple Wraithguard and everything like that, it's a great value for you too. you can always sell the Dire Avengers later. And I'm going to tell you about a little hack that you can do, something that I'm going to actually do and maybe post a video of it on the channel a little later, is how to convert Guardians into Dire Avengers. So these Dire Avengers, these extra Dire Avengers you're getting, if you have a unit of Guardians, you can very easily convert the Guardians into Dire Avengers. It's a super easy process. You just take the head of the Dire Avenger, you slot it into the Guardian head. It fits almost perfectly most of the time. And then you just kind of take the shuriken catapult that the Guardians have and you add the, scope that the Avenger shuriken catapult has, and it's almost identical. It looks very similar. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can kind of cut off one of the backpack antennas of the Guardians, and you can put the little telescope that the Dire Avengers have in place of that. So, it will look very good when it's all said and done. And a lot of people have access to Guardians because of this old combat patrol that we have. If you have more than, 2 squads of Guardians, you have 3 squads of Guardians, it's a very easy conversion. I'm going to be doing it personally just to kind of, have a more updated Dire Avenger, you know, in my army. But the old ones do look good for their age, I have to say. A lot of the Eldar models do look good for their age as well. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I got a video tomorrow on the Guardian Death Star. I'm going to be talking about a really strong unit that I think is maybe overlooked by a lot of players reviewing the codex and things like that. But I noticed it right away and I thought, wow, that's going to be really cool. And it actually is awesome. I'm going to share with you guys my recent experience with that unit. It's a really awesome unit. All right, guys, thank you once again to all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last 2 years. Your help has greatly improved the channel and helped it grow significantly. I really appreciate your support. Also, if you want to become a patron and help support the channel, I'll leave that link in the description. You do get free access to the Discord community if you become a Patreon member, whether that be through a free trial or supporting the channel. So check that out. You can talk to me. You can talk to a lot of other Eldar players. There's a lot of people that, are, talking about, different Eldar tactics and strategies and even buying and selling models. So if you're interested in, buying and selling some models, there is a place for you to do that as well. Lastly, I have a channel store page and am an Amazon affiliate. So if you want to grab that discounted, Eldar, the old Eldar Combat Patrol on Amazon for 140 bucks, now's the time. Use my affiliate link, click on that link, and I do have the Eldar Combat Patrol in there from, before, the old one, basically. So it'll support the channel a little bit, and it'll also give you what you need to, make a really strong starting list. Lastly, I have a channel store page which has Eldar-inspired apparel with runes on them and all sorts of cool stuff related to the Eldar, so check that out. You can also click on the link in the description. It does also help the channel a little bit. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody, and peace out.